And hello. Before I say anything else, I want you to listen carefully. Not to me, but to that voice in your head. The one that keeps saying, "Not today." The one that whispers, "And I'll start tomorrow." The one that convinces you that your situation is special, that your struggle is different, that your excuses are justified. I'm Andrew, and I'm not here to motivate you with comfort. I'm here to challenge you with the truth. And the truth is simple: excuses are the silent killers of potential. And every single one of us has dreams. Big dreams, real dreams, dreams that keep us awake at night. But dreams don't die because of lack of talent, and they don't die because of lack of intelligence. They die because of excuses. And I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have support. I'm not ready yet. Let me tell you something: ready is a lie. No one is ever ready, and you become ready by starting. And until you stop making excuses, you will stay exactly where you are. Excuses feel safe. They protect your ego, and they give you a reason to avoid discomfort. But growth has never lived in comfort. Success has never followed convenience. Every time you choose an excuse, and you choose weakness over strength. Every time you delay, you train yourself to quit. And slowly, day by day, you build a habit, not of progress, but of avoidance. And ask yourself honestly, how many opportunities have you already lost because you waited for the perfect moment? Let's be real. Life is not fair. Some people start ahead, and some people struggle more. Some people carry heavier burdens. But fairness has never built greatness. Responsibility does. The moment you stop blaming your past, and your parents, your environment, or your circumstances, and take full ownership of your life, that's the moment your power comes back. And you don't control everything that happens to you, but you control what you do next. And that choice matters more than any excuse you can make. You say you're tired. Fine. And be tired, but don't quit. You say you're scared. Good. Fear means you're stepping into something meaningful. You say it's hard. Of course it is. If it were easy, and everyone would do it. Hard is the price of change. Pain is the cost of progress. And discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. And stop asking for motivation. Start building discipline. Look at your habits. Look at your routine. Your results are not accidental. They are earned or ignored, and every single day. Small actions repeated daily will beat big excuses made once. You don't need a miracle. You need consistency. You don't need permission, and you need courage. And you don't need more time. You need better decisions with the time you already have. So here's my challenge to you. And the next time you catch yourself making an excuse, pause. Call it out. Replace it with action, no matter how small. One step, one decision, one commitment today. And because confidence is built by keeping promises to yourself. And the strongest people are not the ones with the best conditions, but the ones who refuse to quit when conditions are bad. Excuses feel safe because they protect you from discomfort, failure, and judgment. But that safety is an illusion. And the moment you choose an excuse, you are not choosing rest or patience, you are choosing delay. And delay, repeated over time, becomes a habit that slowly kills potential. And most people don't fail loudly. They fail quietly, behind reasonable explanations that sound responsible on the surface, but are destructive underneath. And I'm waiting for the right time. I need to learn more first. I'll start when things settle down. These words don't sound dangerous, but they are. And they keep you stuck while convincing you that you're being smart. Here's the uncomfortable truth: excuses are rarely lies. They are truths used at the wrong time. Yes, and you might be busy. Yes, the conditions may be imperfect. Yes, you may feel unprepared. But growth has never required perfection. It has always required courage. And when you let excuses guide your decisions, you train your mind to associate comfort with safety and challenge with danger. Over time, this rewires your behavior, and you stop chasing what matters and start protecting what's familiar. And familiarity, when it replaces ambition, becomes a cage. Ask yourself this, and how many times have you convinced yourself that tomorrow would be better, easier, or more convenient? That thought feels logical, but it's rarely true, and tomorrow brings its own problems, its own fatigue, its own excuses. The real issue is not time or resources, it's avoidance, and excuses give you a way to avoid the risk of trying and failing. But what they never tell you is that avoiding failure also means avoiding success, and you cannot separate the two. The same action that gives you a chance to fail is the action that gives you a chance to win. And what makes excuses so dangerous is how reasonable they sound. Society rewards them. People nod in understanding when you explain why you couldn't start, and no one challenges you. No one pushes back. And slowly, you begin to believe your own explanations. You start identifying with them. They become part of your story, and at that point, excuses are no longer something you make, they are something you live by. That's when potential doesn't just pause, it decays. And there is a powerful shift that happens when you stop asking, "Is this comfortable?" and start asking, "Is this necessary?" Necessary actions are rarely easy, and they demand effort when you're tired, discipline when you're unmotivated, and focus when distractions are everywhere. But necessary actions build self-respect, and every time you act despite discomfort, you send a message to yourself that you are in control. That message is addictive in the best way. It builds confidence, momentum, and clarity. Think about this for a moment. Your future doesn't need your excuses, it needs your effort. Potential is not impressed by your reasons, and it responds only to action. You may not see immediate results when you stop making excuses, but something far more important begins to change your identity, and you stop seeing yourself as someone who intends to act and start seeing yourself as someone who does. That shift alone can change the direction of your life, and the hardest part is the first honest moment, when you admit that the excuse you've been holding onto is costing you more than it's protecting you, and that moment requires humility. It requires you to drop the story and face reality. But on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. Freedom from waiting, and freedom from guilt. Freedom from the constant feeling that you could be doing more but aren't. Excuses promise comfort today, but they steal progress tomorrow, and tomorrow, repeated enough times, becomes a lifetime. If you want to protect something, don't protect your comfort. Protect your potential, and waiting to feel ready is one of the most convincing lies the mind ever tells. It sounds responsible, intelligent, even mature. But beneath that polished surface is fear, and fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discovering your limits. The idea of being ready gives you permission to pause without guilt, and it allows you to stand still while telling yourself you're preparing. But preparation without action is just procrastination wearing a professional disguise. And the truth is simple and uncomfortable: readiness is not a prerequisite for action. It is the result of action. Look at every meaningful transformation in your life, and none of them began when you felt fully confident or perfectly equipped. They began when you stepped forward despite uncertainty. Confidence didn't come first, and competence did. And competence was built through repetition, mistakes, and adjustment. The mind wants guarantees before it moves, but life doesn't offer guarantees, and it offers opportunities, and opportunities demand movement. When you wait for certainty, you don't become safer, you become stuck. And the most dangerous part of waiting to feel ready is how invisible the damage is at first. Days pass quietly. Nothing dramatic happens. There is no clear failure, and no obvious loss. But momentum disappears. Self-trust weakens. Each delay sends a subtle message to your brain that hesitation is acceptable. Over time, and that message becomes a pattern. You start doubting your ability to handle challenge, not because you can't, but because you haven't proven to yourself that you can. And action is the only proof your mind believes. There is no such thing as a perfect starting point. Every beginning is awkward. Every first attempt is incomplete, and every early step feels unstable. That instability is not a sign that you should stop, it's a sign that you've started. And growth always feels uncomfortable at first because it stretches you beyond what is familiar. The people you admire didn't wake up one day feeling ready, and they woke up one day tired of waiting. They chose progress over comfort and learned along the way. Readiness is often confused with knowledge, and you think you need to know more, plan more, think more. But information alone doesn't create readiness. Experience does. You don't learn how to swim by studying water, and you learn by getting in and struggling at first. The same applies to discipline, leadership, confidence, and success. You develop these traits in motion, not in thought, and action sharpens clarity. Movement creates direction. Stillness only creates doubt. There is also an emotional cost to waiting that most people ignore, and every time you delay starting something that matters to you, a small amount of belief in yourself disappears. You feel it as frustration, restlessness, or self-criticism, and you tell yourself you should be further along by now. That internal tension grows not because you're incapable, but because you're resisting your own potential. and starting releases that pressure. Even imperfect action brings relief because it aligns you with growth. Understand this clearly: feeling ready is not confidence, and it's comfort. And comfort has never built anything extraordinary. Readiness is built through repetition, through showing up when you're unsure, and through learning in real time. The moment you act, you gain feedback. Feedback creates adjustment. Adjustment creates improvement. Improvement creates confidence. And that is the real order of progress, and it has never changed. The hook that most people miss is this: and your future self is already capable of what you're afraid to start today. The only thing separating you from that version of yourself is action. Not tomorrow, and not when conditions improve. Now. Because readiness is not something you wait for. It's something you earn by moving forward before you feel prepared. And blaming your circumstances feels natural because it gives you an explanation for why things are the way they are. And it offers relief from responsibility and softens the discomfort of unmet potential. But that relief is temporary, and the cost is permanent. And the moment you hand control of your life to your past, your environment, or other people, you also hand away your power to change anything. And circumstances may influence where you start, but they do not have the authority to decide where you finish. That authority is earned the moment you take ownership. And here's the hook most people avoid: facing the world does not respond to excuses. It responds to decisions. You can have the most painful story, the most unfair beginning, and the most legitimate reasons for being behind, and none of that will move your life forward. Only action will. And responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that went wrong. It's about deciding that regardless of what went wrong, you will be the one who fixes it. And that decision alone separates those who remain stuck from those who rise. It's easy to point to external factors because they are visible. A lack of money and a lack of support, a toxic environment, limited opportunities. These are real challenges, not imaginary ones. But focusing on what you don't control quietly weakens you, and your mind adapts to the story you repeat. If the story is, "I can't because of them," your behavior will always wait for someone else to change first, and ownership flips that story. It says, "This is mine to solve." And that mindset unlocks creativity, resilience, and strength you didn't know you had. And the shift toward ownership is uncomfortable because it removes your safety net. When you stop blaming, there is nowhere to hide, and your progress and your stagnation both become your responsibility. That level, your honesty can feel heavy at first, but it is also incredibly freeing, and you stop wasting energy on resentment and comparison. Instead, that energy gets redirected into execution, and you stop asking why life did this to you and start asking what you're going to do about it. And one of the most powerful hooks of responsibility is that it gives meaning to struggle. Pain without ownership feels pointless, and pain with responsibility feels temporary and purposeful. When you take ownership, even setbacks become useful. Failure turns into feedback, obstacles turn into training, and you stop seeing difficulty as a signal to quit and start seeing it as proof that you're on a path that requires growth. And that mental reframe alone can change how long you persist. Taking responsibility also rebuilds self-respect. Every time you choose to act instead of complain, and you reinforce your belief in your own agency. You may not win immediately, but you regain something more valuable: trust in yourself. That trust compounds, and it shows up in how you speak, how you carry yourself, and how seriously you take your own goals. People who own their lives don't need validation, and their actions become their identity. There is a hard truth hidden inside this idea: no one is coming to save you. And while that can sound harsh, it is actually empowering. And because if no one is coming, then you are not waiting anymore. You are moving, you are deciding, you are building. Ownership places the steering wheel back in your hands, and even if the road is rough and visibility is low, the moment you stop asking, "Who is responsible for this?" and start saying, "And I am responsible for what happens next," everything shifts. Your circumstances may not change overnight, but you will. And when you change, and your outcomes eventually follow, motivation is powerful, but it is unreliable. It shows up when conditions are good, when energy is high, when results feel close, and discipline shows up when none of that is true. That is the difference most people never fully understand. They wait to feel inspired before they act, and not realizing that inspiration is a visitor, not a resident. Discipline is the system that stays when motivation disappears. If you only move when you feel like it, and your progress will always be temporary. Here is the hook most people overlook: motivation responds to emotion. Discipline responds to commitment. Emotions change daily, and sometimes hourly. Commitment does not. When you tie your success to how you feel, you give your feelings control over your future. Discipline takes that control back, and it says you act because you decided to, not because it feels easy or exciting. That shift alone separates people who start from people who finish, and motivation loves big beginnings. Discipline survives boring middle stages. Anyone can feel motivated at the start of a goal. The vision is clear, the energy is high, and the results seem close. But progress is built in the quiet, repetitive days when nothing exciting happens. Discipline is what carries you through those days, and it is what keeps you consistent when the excitement fades and the work feels ordinary. And it is in that ordinary work that extraordinary results are created. And waiting for motivation is also dangerous because it creates dependency. You start believing you need a certain mood, environment, or mindset before you can act, and that belief weakens you. Discipline does the opposite. It builds self-trust. Every time you show up despite resistance, you prove to yourself that you are reliable, and that proof compounds. Confidence is not built by hype, it is built by evidence. Discipline creates that evidence daily. Another hook is this, and discipline reduces mental stress. When everything depends on motivation, you constantly debate with yourself. Should I do it today? Do I feel like it? And is this the right moment? Discipline removes those questions. The decision is already made. You act because it's part of who you are, and not because you negotiated with your emotions. That clarity saves energy and increases focus. Discipline is also what protects you from distraction, and motivation chases intensity. Discipline values consistency. In a world full of noise, discipline creates structure. It turns goals into routines and routines into results. And you don't rise to the level of your motivation, you fall to the level of your discipline. That truth explains why talented people quit and less talented people succeed, and talent opens doors. Discipline keeps them open. Many people think discipline is harsh or restrictive, but the opposite is true. Discipline creates freedom, and when you control your habits don't control you. You stop being ruled by impulse, procrastination, and excuses. You gain control over your time, your energy, and your direction. That control creates momentum, and momentum creates belief. Discipline also trains your identity, and you stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who executes. That identity shift is powerful. Once you believe you are disciplined, and your behavior begins to match that belief, you no longer need motivation to start because starting becomes automatic. Action becomes your default response and not something you have to convince yourself to do. The real power of discipline is not in intensity, but in endurance. Anyone can push hard for a week, and discipline builds people who last. It teaches you to move forward even when progress is slow, even when results are invisible, even when no one is watching, and those are the moments that define who you become. Motivation may light the spark, but discipline keeps the fire burning. Without discipline, motivation fades, and with discipline, results are inevitable. Most people underestimate the power of small actions because they are obsessed with dramatic change, and they believe success must come from big moves, massive effort, or perfect execution. That belief is comforting because it allows them to wait, and it makes inaction feel justified. But the truth works in the opposite direction. Progress is rarely loud. It is quiet, repetitive, and often unimpressive in the moment. And small, consistent actions may not look powerful today, but they become unstoppable over time. Here is the hook that shifts everything. Excuses feel big, but they produce nothing. Small actions feel small, but they produce momentum. Momentum is the real force behind success. Once momentum starts, effort feels lighter, and confidence grows faster, and clarity improves. But momentum does not come from overthinking or planning. It comes from doing something, however minor, and doing it again tomorrow. Big excuses often sound intelligent, and I need more time. I need a better plan. I need the right resources. These statements feel responsible, but they hide avoidance, and small actions expose avoidance because they remove complexity. 10 minutes of focused work destroys the excuse of having no time, and one uncomfortable conversation destroys the excuse of waiting for confidence. One page written destroys the excuse of needing inspiration, and small actions leave no room to hide. Consistency is where identity is formed. Anyone can act once when emotions are high, and very few people act daily when emotions are neutral or low. Small, consistent actions train your brain to associate progress with routine rather than effort. Over time, and this changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who intends to act and start identifying as someone who follows through. And that identity shift is more powerful than any single achievement. There is also a psychological advantage to small actions. They reduce resistance. The mind resists big and vague goals because they feel overwhelming. Small actions feel manageable, which lowers fear and hesitation. Once you start, resistance weakens. Action creates clarity, and clarity fuels the next action. This loop is how progress compounds. Waiting for perfect conditions breaks the loop before it begins. Excuses thrive in inconsistency, and when your actions are random, excuses sound logical. But when you show up every day, excuses lose credibility. You begin to see patterns, and you realize that energy increases after action, not before. You notice that progress happens even on days you don't feel ready, and these realizations are only available through consistency, not intention. Small actions also build trust with yourself. Every completed action, no matter how minor, and is a promise kept. Promises kept build confidence. Confidence reduces fear. Reduced fear increases action. This cycle compounds quietly but powerfully. On the other hand, excuses break trust. Each excuse is a promise broken. Over time, broken promises weaken self-belief and make starting harder. Another hook most people miss is this, and big results are not created by big days, they are created by ordinary days repeated without drama. The world celebrates overnight success, but overnight success is usually years of small actions no one saw. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is rarely crossed in one leap, and it is crossed step by step. Small actions also protect you from burnout, and big bursts of effort followed by long pauses feel productive, but lead to exhaustion and frustration. Consistent effort keeps progress sustainable, and it allows growth without collapse. This is how long-term success is built, not by intensity alone, but by endurance. When you choose small actions over big excuses, and you remove pressure and increase probability, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. Show up. Do the work. Repeat. Over time, and those small actions will do what excuses never could, move your life forward. Pain is unavoidable. No matter which path you choose, discomfort will be part of the journey, and the difference is not whether you feel pain, but when and why you feel it. Growth demands pain up front. Regret delivers pain later, and most people avoid the first and unknowingly sign up for the second. That is the trade-off few are honest enough to confront. The pain of discipline, effort, and change feels heavy in the moment, but it carries purpose. The pain of staying the same feels lighter day to day, but it accumulates into something far more destructive. And here is the hook that cuts through denial: the pain you avoid today returns as regret tomorrow, with interest. Regret is a quiet pain. It doesn't scream, it whispers, and it shows up in questions like, what if? And why didn't I? It surfaces when you see someone else living a life you once imagined for yourself. And unlike temporary discomfort, regret has no expiration date. It stays, it grows, and it becomes harder to carry with every passing year. And change hurts, because it requires you to let go of a familiar identity. Even if that identity is limiting, it feels safe, and the known pain of your current situation feels more manageable than the unknown pain of growth. That's why people stay in routines that drain them, and relationships that shrink them, and habits that hold them back. Staying the same doesn't feel dangerous in the moment. It feels tolerable. But tolerable is not sustainable, and what you tolerate today defines what you live with tomorrow. The pain of growth, on the other hand, is honest. It demands effort, patience, and humility, and it exposes weaknesses and forces learning. But it also strengthens you. Every uncomfortable action expands your capacity. You don't just get closer to your goals, and you become someone capable of holding them. That is the hidden reward of growth pain. It upgrades your identity along with your results, and there is also a timing difference most people miss. Growth pain is temporary and scheduled. You choose it. You know why you're enduring it, and regret pain is unplanned and uncontrollable. It arrives when you least expect it and stays longer than you want. You can't train for regret, you can only prevent it, and prevention requires action now, not intention later. Another powerful hook is, this future regret does not care how tired, busy, or unprepared you felt, and it only remembers that you didn't try. Years from now, the excuses that sound convincing today will feel hollow, and time has a way of stripping away justifications and leaving only outcomes. That realization hits hardest when opportunities are gone and energy is lower than it used to be. And choosing growth pain is also an act of self-respect. It says you believe your future is worth the discomfort of the present, and it says you trust yourself enough to struggle now so you don't suffer later. That mindset builds strength. It replaces avoidance with intention and fear with resolve, and you stop asking what feels easy and start asking what leads somewhere better. Staying the same feels safe because it doesn't demand immediate courage, but safety without progress slowly becomes confinement. The walls close in quietly. Dreams shrink, standards lower. You don't fail suddenly, you fade gradually. And that is the true danger of avoiding change, not collapse but slow erosion. Growth pain sharpens you. Regret dulls you. One pushes you forward, and the other holds you hostage to the past. Every decision you delay is a decision you still make, just not in your favor. The question is not whether you will feel pain, and the question is which pain you are willing to live with. Let me close with this. One day, you will look back at this moment, and you will either be proud that you stopped making excuses and started building your life, or you will regret that you chose comfort over courage. The choice is yours, and no more tomorrow, no more waiting, no more excuses. Start now. Your future is watching.